Well, thanks for carving out some time for me today. I was just thinking about it the other day. We've been friends for 40 years. 40
Jeez,
years,
yep.
and I've just been so impressed with what you've done with your life over the years. You've got a beautiful family. You're a big part of the community here, and your business has just really blossomed, and it's impressive and inspiring. So I just wanted to ask you some questions, kind of learn a little bit more about your background, your process, what makes you tick, and what inspires you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously, thank you for that. I didn't expect that to be part of this at all. But yeah, when you think about it like that, 1985, 1986, and here we are. And it blows me away. And you've been a great friend for me too, and a huge inspiration for me too. So it goes both ways for sure, Rob. So thank you, and thanks for all what Rob's here. He's going to take care of our house while we're gone for a couple of weeks. And so he is given up almost 3 weeks of his life in Arizona to come here, and it's pretty hot in Arizona, so he does have some underlying motivation there, but he does get to stay with us, and he does take care of our dog, and it's a huge benefit, and he's been a huge friend for a long time. So anyway, thank you for doing this. I appreciate you being willing to even do this. So cool.
Well,
thank
tell
you.
me, so how did it all start? How long have you lived in Laguna? When did you first move here? Was it family, parents brought you here? Let's start at the beginning.
All right, cool. Yeah, and just to give you a little context, Rob and I went to school together. We went to college together in Arizona, went to Arizona State University. We met in 1985 in a fraternity. And so throughout that time, Rob has had the opportunity to come to California, visit, get to know a little bit about Laguna, surrounding community. So he has a definite feel for Southern California, beaches, pluses and minuses of all of the coastal communities here in Orange County. So he does have a little bit, and he does have a real appreciation for what we have here, and always enjoys his time here. So anyway, so that's that. So how did it start? Is that what the question was? Well, honestly, my family came here in 1968. My dad was a fledgling architect. He was an architect, a lead architect on a church that was being built in Palm Springs. And there was a big stained glass component to this church. And the stained glass artist was here in Laguna Beach. He was a very well-renowned stained glass artist named Joss Mace. And my dad's job was to facilitate and coordinate the installation of that as a part of his function as the lead architect there. And through that process, he came to Laguna quite a bit to meet with Joss and review the stained glass. And through that, experience, he fell in love with Laguna, had a real appreciation for what it was. And when that church was done, he was in the desert for a couple of years. It was hot. Laguna seemed very attractive. And so when he was done with that church, he came to Laguna with my mom, and I had just been born 11 months before. And so we got here in 1968, and we came to a neighborhood up on the hill called Arch Beach Heights. We lived in a couple of houses in Arch Beach Heights. That was from 1968 through about 1977, and then moved down from that into other neighborhoods around town.
What are some of your earliest childhood memories growing up in Laguna?
Oh gosh, I've got so many memories, especially like right now as my son just graduated from high school, right? I started recall that process and that period of my life going through the same town, the same school that he went through. I've had the opportunity to really reflect on that, especially recently, as you go through this period. But the memories that I have so much of as a kid were, days at the beach, really, warm sand, sandy feet, walking up from the beach, going to say Spigot Liquor, grabbing a sandwich, going back to the beach. Life was pretty easy. And I have those memories. I have a lot of memories of Arch Beach Heights and the neighborhoods that we lived in up there. That was a new community. There was a lot of new construction going on. My best friend Scott Thorne lived on the street, one street over from us. And there were a lot of vacant houses, a lot of construction in process. It was just a really attractive thing for a kid. A lot of dirt, a lot of nails and wood. And so quite honestly, our neighborhood was our playground. And I had a lot of memories of just rummaging through these vacant houses that were under construction. honestly, I hate to say it, we used to have rock fights and BB gun wars and ice plant fights, and and it was fun. It was fun. And now looking back, I'm like, what the heck were we doing? So I have memories of those, and those were my younger years. As I get older, I kind of reflect on other periods of time at different stages, at different beaches, at different periods of our life. I think my elementary school years were basically on Woods Cove. Then we ended up, middle school, we ended up down at St. Anne's. And then from there, we end up coming back down to Victoria, which was the neighborhood I spent most of my childhood in. And then ultimately down to Bluebird, which is kind of where we are right now. And it's right across the street.
I mean, that's incredible. It sounds like you've basically lived in or have spent time in every part of the Laguna Beach community for the last 50 plus years now.
True.
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
That is true.
And what's changed over those years, and what's stayed the same?
Gosh dang. I look across the street right there. Used to be a Denny's. Now there's a Sonder Hotel. This building wasn't here when we got here. I remember this building being built. There's a lot of changes that occur just over time by just sheer passing of time and, regentrification and all that other stuff that just occurs naturally. But I think what's been so special and what's been retained in this community that's just kept that overall charm and that feeling that everybody loves is, the character, the community itself. I think there's a very tight-knit, collaborative community that everybody kind of knows each other. As small as this community is, you get an opportunity for that. I think what's changed is, when we first got here, we were, late 60s, early 70s. It was a small little artist community. It was on the beach, so, it didn't feel like a ton of wealth. It just felt like where we grew up. I think over the past 30 years, 20 years, there's been this influx of wealth that has come into our town that has definitely changed the sort of the face of it, and from this sleepy little artist colony to much more of a substantial. We've got the Montage in South Laguna. I think that was a huge one. When the Montage came, it really put Laguna Beach on the map, and a different level of people came to town at that point. The show Laguna Beach on MTV, I think that was prior to the Montage arriving. In fact, I'm certain it was. That, I think, was something that really brought another level of attention to Laguna. And that's when I think things started to change, and really it started to get discovered as this, what it really is. And, now what we've got is this unbelievable, beautiful coastal town, which we've always had that. We've always had the coves that we have here. We've always had the topography, the way that the mountains come down and hit the ocean. And it's really unusual. If you look at a lot of the other coastal towns around Southern California, it's real different. The access to the beach and access to town. You come down the 133 and you dead end right into the beach.
Well, that's something that I've felt is really evident here. There's a real sense of community. It's a small town.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here.
For sure.
And it's an interesting and beautiful and a slice of heaven, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But it's a tight-knit community, and I see when I'm walking with you around town, or we went to the music festival on the music event on Sunday, everybody knows everybody there.
Yeah.
It's just the coolest. That there's a quality of life that comes with that.
Yeah.
That's hard to find. That's really hard to find. I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned this building wasn't here when you first were growing up. You set up shop here, so you've got your office here.
Yep.
What made you decide to do that? And your father, does he also office in the complex?
Yep, absolutely. And honestly, that was what kind of prompted me to have some interest in the building when we went through the process. When he was relocating from where he had been 30 years down on the other side of Diamond, and he relocated and came here, and he bought one of these. And this had been a complex that had been, highly felt neglected for quite some time. It was a great parking lot for a lot of local people. Quite honestly, I used this building for 25 years as a parking lot for the beach across the street. And through that process, my dad had bought his office space in here. And when he got here, being the architect and being the man that he is, Looking at the condition of the property, he just it didn't sit well with him, and so he took it upon himself to make it, I'm going to, refresh this place and give it a new look and bring it back to what it was. And it's a beautiful building, great outdoor space. So through that process and getting to know it for him, and knowing what a special part of town this has been for me for so long. I mean, again, spent the majority of my years on the beach here at Bluebird. Our house is just right up the street. The idea that I could create this little, my office here, everything is within a half a mile of everything in our life, this little hub. It was a little kind of dream that just kind of came together, and it's worked out, and I love it. It's been fantastic.
So you've mentioned your father is an architect. He's been an architect in town for a long time.
Yep.
I imagine as you drive up and down coast and throughout the community, you see his work all over the place. His fingerprints are all over the place here. Talk about how your father has had an influence and, quite frankly, has benefited your ability to be a real estate broker. How does that translate? And then your mother as well, who was a real estate broker in town for a long period of time. So you had that as an influence on your mother's side, your father on the architectural side, and I believe you were also involved in construction at one point. So you've got the build side of that whole equation as experience. So collectively, how does that all benefit you or motivate you or inspire you as a real estate broker?
Yeah, no, there's no secret, to that. And when I was evaluating the idea of getting into real estate, I did feel like I had a really good background to do what I'm doing today. And my mom sold real estate here in town for almost 40 years. My dad is still a practicing architect here in town. So I grew up with this business at our kitchen table, essentially. We talked about it all the time. We lived it. And not only did we live it, I don't think I've seen anybody in my life who's more passionate about something that they do in their life than my dad. And still at 84, he still has that passion about everything he does. And so for me, I feel like a little of that rubbed off on me. I love what I do. I feel like with everything we do, we give it 100%. I have utmost integrity in every action that we take. And our reputation and our longevity here in town is paramount to us, and I want to be here for a long time. This isn't just sell one home and let's cash a check and move on. This is something that I want to be a resource for this town. I feel like we've had a lot of years, a lot of history, a lot of experience here in knowing how to get around this town, the ins and outs of it, and I like to share that with people. And I think through that process, real estate allows us to do that. And going to my dad, growing up with his attention to detail and knowing what kinds of questions to ask when things pop up. And a big part about Laguna is, can we remodel it? Can we expand it? What's the impact of these trees? Those kinds of things. And just to have the wherewithal to know how to answer certain questions or how to direct somebody. I don't have all the answers, but I do know where to go. We do have all the resources to point you in the right direction for that. But no, I was a general contractor for about 5 years here in town myself, so I learned it. But all of that experience, growing up with parents, I think adds to what I do, and it's kind of just part of who I am right now. And I think it's a huge benefit. And it's probably something we don't talk enough about is, what we bring to our clients and our ability to navigate certain things around town that we take for granted, but to most people is a difficult task.
Well, commercial real estate, residential real estate, it's a transaction business.
Yep.
You're in the business of transacting sales. But what I gather from you, certainly in light of your lifelong roots in this community, is it's far more than a transaction. Like you really do care.
Yeah.
You're not just trying to close deals.
Yeah.
You're trying to close the right deal for that client, and for the community. And there's a real sense of obligation to do the right thing for both parties, for the buyer, for the seller, and for the community at large, which is unique.
Yeah.
I think you can't just roll into town one day and decide to, be that guy. That only comes from having had the kind of equity in this community that you've had for decades.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's true, Rob, for sure. I mean, I don't like to talk about it, but it definitely is a huge part of what we do. And I think, to me, yeah, I want to do a really good job. I want to make our community look good. I want people who come here to appreciate and love this place like we do. And that's what I love about it. It isn't about the transaction. And I do, like I said, I want to be a resource for all things Laguna. Yeah, I'm a real estate broker, but I really want to be a resource for this town and be an ambassador for this town, and somebody who's proud. You touched on it a little bit about Sunday, music in the park, right? I mean, that kind of stuff, that park there, Bluebird Park, I mean, everybody who has grown up in town, it's almost like Riddle Field in North Laguna. There is a sort of a rite of passage. Everybody goes to Riddle Field. Bluebird Park even more so, and how many memories that we have. If you're a kid who's grown up in Laguna, I don't know how many birthday parties you've been to there, how much time you've spent there. Maybe it was your bus stop, but there have been a lot of memories around Bluebird Park. And I go there at Music in the Park the other day. Party Foul is one of the bands we love. They've played around Laguna for 40 years, some combination of who they are. But now, as Party Foul, they've just been a great band and a fun band that really represents kind of who Laguna is, and they've got a huge following. And so you go out there, Music in the Park, you see the community, you see the people you've grown up with. There's a lot of people who have now heard about Music in the Park and come. But Party Foul on this last Sunday was a real attraction for the locals here, and that was super cool. It was like a little reunion, and it was the first one of the summer to kick it off, and I thought it was a special way to start the summer series. And yeah, to me, that's just indicative of that hometown feel that we have in Laguna that you talked about. And to me, I never thought that was something that was anything that I even wanted. I had no idea that a hometown would be something cool to have. And this little town fits that. I mean, it's just a perfect little town that's got, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but to have a hometown, to have a little community, the coffee shops, everything's connected. There are 4 schools. Everybody feeds into the same high school. You have a real sense of community across the town. So anyway.
Well, you sold me, but I'm going to ask you to keep selling.
All right,
So
okay.
I've been vacationing here and spending time here for, since the 80s.
Okay.
I think I've been out here almost every summer since the mid-80s. And I keep thinking, all right, maybe this is the year I'm going to buy a house out here, plant a flag, and really immerse as well. So as somebody who is in the market, how do you sell me? How do you sell somebody on this community? What makes this beach community more unique and attractive than others up and down the coast? Yeah,
that's a great question, and it's tough to answer because there's a lot of little nuances to that, what makes a great community. What I typically like to do if somebody is not super familiar, I mean, generally they have a sense that they want to be in this area or Orange County, and maybe they're not quite sure of Laguna or Newport or maybe even Dana Point. What I like to do is I'll just ask them to come into the office. We'll sit down, we'll talk about what people are looking for, what their true needs, wants, how they anticipate using the house. And then I'll get in the car and we'll drive around and we'll get to know the neighborhoods, and we'll talk through that process of what the different neighborhoods have, the benefits, the access points, trails or schools, or what makes the different neighborhoods the neighborhoods. There are 39 different neighborhoods in Laguna. There are 4 general areas, but 39 neighborhoods. I don't think people really realize that. And I don't think there's a bad neighborhood in Laguna, but they all have their differences, certainly. And I think most importantly, you have to define what you're trying to get out of the home you're seeking. What are you going to be using it for? Is it for your kids? Is it for you? Is it a second home? There's a lot to uncover in that process before you figure out exactly where you're going to end up.
So whether it's a buyer or a seller, there's oftentimes a need for renovations, potentially a complete rebuild, whatever it is. You have to deal with the city.
Yep.
So there's a permitting process, plans have to get approved, all of this. How does your experience provide value to your clients to be able to navigate that system?
That's a great question too. And I think growing up in this town, having the experience, building homes in this town, but we had a fire in '93. At that time I had my general contractor's license. And through that, we had rebuilt about 12 different homes. And through that experience and that process, I got to know, the ins and outs of the town. Now that was a long time ago. But through that, I learned kinds of questions that needed to be asked, what departments there are in the city, where to go for certain things, what can be done realistically, and what I think is virtually impossible. And I think I got a pretty good sense of being able to guide people through our experience. And I think that in itself, having relationships down there, having been through the process a number of times, and then once in a while having hit a wall and knowing what to do when that happens and who to ask and where to go, I think is a huge benefit.
Well, you have to anticipate the unexpected, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's no such thing as a direct line from A to B to get something done. There's typically a lot of adjustments that need to be made, and it's the person who's got that experience and kind of the creativity to figure out a way to get it done. And that based on what you've gone through in this community, it seems like you've got that background.
Again, I hate self-promoting and pat myself on the back and stuff, but I do think what we have and the experience that we have and the depth of resources that we have are a huge benefit for our clientele. Just the ability to be nimble when stuff happens, who to go to, where to go, I just think is a huge benefit.
What's one thing that buyers should always be considering when looking to purchase a home in Laguna?
Oh, again, I go back to the question that I had said before, like, what is your intention of this house? What do you plan to do with this house? Where are you in life? And what are you looking for? A lot of people come here and they get wowed by the views, right? So they go, God, I gotta have that view, right? And they go up and they get a view, and typically the view homes are on the hill. And there is a bit of a migration pattern that we can track here in town where people from out of town will buy view homes, and then as time goes on, they'll appreciate it, but then they want to get lower, they want to go down the hill a little bit more and be a little more connected to town, the community, the beaches, and things like that. And so I think that's something to be aware of. Are you active? Do you want to ride bikes? Do you want to walk? Access to schools, is that important? Privacy, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So for sellers, they probably have in their minds what the fair market value would be.
Yeah.
They may have a lot of different thoughts going through their heads. Their home is important to them, especially at a point when they're looking to transact that. What are some of the common misperceptions of a seller that you can help them with, so that the process runs smoothly for them and they get out of that what they want?
Yeah. I don't know, the thing that comes to mind the most, that what does a seller want? Oftentimes I'll go on a listing appointment and there will be a house and somebody has owned the house for a long time. And maybe they've done something that's not permitted, right? I think there's a lot of people who do some things in town without thinking that they need a permit for, or that won't cause them problems down the road. I can't get those people out of certain things if they violated building code requirements or the process. There is what's called a real property report in town, and through the sales process, every seller in town is required to produce a real property report that you pay the city to produce, right? And the city gives you this real property report, and it's a historical audit of this property that you're buying or selling. But you as the seller are obligated to provide that to a buyer. And that tells you essentially what you're buying. It's a single family home. There are no variances that were approved as a condition of the development of this. It sits on it's in a flood zone. Maybe it's high fire hazard, or, there's some things that this will tell you. I think you go in sometime to some sellers, and sellers, said, hey, I just expanded this or did something, and think nothing of it. but maybe they added a little storage room that's, really should have been permitted properly, and they haven't.
So I watch on social media, you have this weekly Monday market watch, and it's great for me. I mean, I love watching it from afar to just understand what's going on in the market. It seems like it's you talk about homes that aren't just homes you're directly involved with, but really what's going on in the whole community. Again, it's your kind of appreciation for trying to help be a resource for the entire community. So what got you started with the Market Watch Monday? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, and it's funny, I joke, it's painful for me, quite honestly, this thing that I've created. But basically, during our COVID times, the market was changing so quickly and so frequently, and things were moving so fast that I felt like it was an opportunity to just stay in touch with the market, let people know what's going on in our local market on a quick, real down and dirty, just the basics of it. And so I said, I'm going to start on a weekly basis. Plus there's this big push to be consistent with your promotion and your social media. It's like, what can we do? We're now expected to be actors and actresses, and so we're doing this whole new thing, and you're trying to do something that gives you something that can be consistent. So we came up with that idea as an opportunity to just share with everybody what's going on in our local market. And for me, it's painful every Monday to do that. Market Watch Monday, it drives me nuts. I'm super uncomfortable doing it, but I do get a lot of good feedback. A lot of people say that they like it. I think it's very boring and basic, but it seems to be helpful. And the one thing I can say with it is, I've never been more on top of the market. I've never been more in touch with exactly what is going on in our market. Every single property, I basically have, a pulse on. And that's super helpful. And the benefit of that is huge for our clients. And so when it comes up, I can rattle it off, and I know exactly what the heck's going on in our market. And so I keep doing it because it keeps me on my toes and keeps me abreast of what's going on in our market.
So we talked about how this is a transaction business, but it's really more than that. It's an emotional process for both the buyer and the seller. This is their home.
Yep.
Tell me how. What's the most rewarding part for you in working with clients on both the buying and the selling side of the equation?
It's interesting, both sides of it, and I've got two good examples recently that I can cite that will be examples of both of those. And recently we sold a home that these people had been in for 39 years, right? And actually they lived on our street, and they'd raised their family there, and the family had moved on, and they were moving to the next phase in their life, and it's positive, and they're excited about it, and they're moving out to the desert, and to help them and to strategize and to create this plan of how we're going to do that and what we're going to do it, and to implement it and to actually see it come to fruition. And in some ways it was a really sad moment for them, but it turned into being very positive because it turned into exactly what they had hoped it would be. And it's just a natural part of life's process. And so they went through, and when I walked through that house and it was empty, and 39 years of their life had moved out of there, and it was just this empty shell before the new people moved in, I was really just touched by the process and being able to help these people accomplish what they've been trying to accomplish and get to that next phase in their life. And now I've talked to them, and they're super tickled about where they are, and they're happy, and they've settled in, and it's been fantastic. So that in selling a home and people transitioning to that next stage. On the other side, we just had a new lease listing that we have brought a new community member and family into our town, and we're super excited about that. And this is a lease listing, and they're moving into a little neighborhood up in Top of the World, which is a neighborhood we've lived in for a long time, raised our family there. And this guy happens to be, he and his family, he happens to be the superintendent of schools here in town, right? So he's our new superintendent. Haven't met him yet, but he moved into this, this rental. And for me, again, when we were going through the walkthrough of this empty house and these people getting excited to move into this house to start their new life, and they've got a couple of middle schoolers that are going to be coming to this community and all they have to look forward to do here in town and what they have in front of them. It's super exciting. And to me, I get most excited when there's a new family or somebody who hasn't experienced Laguna gets an opportunity to come here and then you run into them a few months or a few years down the road and how they've acclimated and just become part of the community. It's super cool.
Yeah. So I've purchased homes in the Phoenix area, and in that process, I interviewed several different real estate brokers who was that I was going to trust to help get me into the right spot or sell my home, and it really ultimately came down to who do I trust the most. Tell me about how trust plays a role in your process. How do you foster that sense of trust with your clients?
Yeah, that's such.
And the fact is, people can tell when you're sincere and authentic, and so it needs to be something deeply felt. How do you convey that and develop that?
Rob, that's such a hard one because I think for so long you're trying to, internally that you're trustworthy and you have integrity, and how do you share that with somebody hey, I promise I'm trustworthy and I'm honest and I'm a hard worker. And we all probably believe that. But I think what I pride myself is we have a very hands-on approach to our business, and I'm involved every step of the way, and I really take pride in the fact that we are involved. And I think we have a track record of over 20 years. My mom had utmost integrity and reputation when she was going through the business. She taught me to always put my clients' needs before mine. What's best for my client? You're in this for the long haul. It's not one transaction. Again, I want to be here in 20 years. I want you to remember the person who helped you get to this phase of your life, or have the experience you've had with the home. And it's not just a house. It's just this whole experience that we get. So I think trust comes based on action, not what we say. It's what we do. And I think if you watch me and you see what I do and see how committed I am to my clients, to my family, to my community, and to what I do, I think my action speaks for itself,
Well, and what you've done for other clients, I imagine, having been doing this for as long as you have, you probably have a fair amount of referrals. And when somebody refers a friend to you, there's a whole lot of credibility that comes along with that. So what part of your business comes from referrals?
Actually, I tracked this last year, and 85% of my business comes from repeat and referral clientele, basically. So it's somebody who I've already done business with, or somebody who is, suggesting that I work with one of their friends or family members. And there's nothing more honorable or that makes me feel good than when somebody refers me to someone.
It says Marcus Skenderian on the office front here.
Yeah.
But it's more than just you. You've got a team.
Yes,
so
for sure.
So talk about your team. Who's on your team? What roles do they play? How do they help make your whole business enterprise successful?
Yeah, my team is fantastic, and that's what makes us, I think, so well. I just think we've got such a great commitment to what we're doing, the industry, our community, and everybody's committed. I mean, I think it starts, obviously, I want to say it starts with me. It really starts with Tammy, who is our operator and the person behind the scenes that really keeps us in check. And Tammy
is...
Oh yeah, who is Tammy? Tammy's my wife, actually, in case you don't know.
How long have you guys been married? When did you first meet her? Let's just...
Oh my God, let's go there. Yeah, this is even better, right? So Tammy and I have been together. We're coming up on 31 years of marriage. We met actually Tortilla Flats right across the way here. I could throw a rock to it. Taco Tuesday, met her there one night. We'd both gone to high school together, but then after college, we connected at Taco Tuesday, and then ran into each other a couple of times around town. And we ultimately had our first date, and that night I knew I was going to marry her. And so almost 31 years later, here we are. I've been begging her to run my business for the past 10 years, but she's been committed to my dad running his business for the last 30 years. So fortunately, as he's starting to transition out of the business, I get the benefit of bringing her on, and for the past couple of years, she has been our operator, and she has got us on systems, organization, and disciplines that we've never had before, and we're actually operating like a full-time real estate team. And then I've got Luke Sidner, who is my right-hand man. Luke's somebody I have known for 10 plus years in and around Laguna, somebody I just believed in as a good person, didn't have a background in real estate, but thought he would be a great asset. And I think that's what our team is. We didn't go out just to create a team. I wanted to create a team of good people, not just for the sake of creating a team. And then we brought Jimmy Russell on. Jimmy is another licensed agent, and Jimmy lives in Long Beach, has worked that area, but is transitioning back down to Laguna. He spent a long time living in Laguna, I think 5+ years here prior to moving to Long Beach. Jimmy's spent 20 years in the mortgage and banking industry, and again, super person. And we made room for him to be a part of our team, and he's doing fantastic. And so our latest addition is the guy behind the camera, Ty Meister, is a kid we've watched grow up here in town. He's blowing on the camera right now to make sure it stays cool so we don't lose this video. Good work. Ty goes the extra mile. I should have a video of Ty doing this. But anyway, and Ty is our marketing liaison for now. He's in the process of getting his license as well, and I think he's going to be a huge asset. He reminds me a little bit of myself with his background in town, knows the nuances of Laguna, the different beaches, the different shortcuts, the different things that I think make Laguna. And he's got the sensitivity to that, to know how to respond and how to, just adapt to the situation. Because Laguna it's a different place, for sure.
That's awesome. Great team. Yeah, teamwork makes the dreams work, right? So let's wrap this up. At the end of the day, what would you want your clients? What do you want your clients and your neighbors to think of you in terms of your working relationship?
God dang, it sounds so corny, but I just want them to know I'm doing the best job I can, and I've always got their best interests in mind when I'm trying to consult, advise, coach them on doing things. I look at things as if it's my family, my money, my home. How would I respond if that's my mom's property? Should we sell it or not? I try to treat it as if it's that, it's that important to me, as if it's my family. And I treat all my clients that way. And I love it. That's the one thing I want to convey. I don't think of this as work. I really get up. I'm excited about what we do. I'm excited about the whole, I feel like my background, I love getting to do some of this. I like being able to interview, get to know people, talk to people. I like utilizing my background in construction and architecture and my love for people, fine things, nice homes, quality. And I think real estate allows you to incorporate all of that into what we do. And I just try to take all of that, package it up into the experience we try to deliver for our clients. And most of the time we hit it. There's once in a while we don't, but we learn from it. And then the next time we won't make that mistake again. So I don't want to talk about mistakes because that's negative, but it is a reality. I mean, we all stumble and learn, and anyway.